how did you find the product in the first instance to then start selling it?
The biggest trouble, I'd say, for access to market is that the better quality the factory, and a lot of people who work in production will notice, the better quality the factory, the harder it is to find. You'd expect a really good quality factory that makes for a Prada or a Gucci or a Balenciaga to have a lovely, beautiful website, to have a good marketing presence, but it's exactly in reverse. So the better the factory, the almost impossible it is to find. Back in 2019, I really suffered. I was working, as I say, like 19-hour days. I saw Elon Musk do a podcast many years ago and saw that he was doing 100 hours a week, and I thought, wow, that's minor leagues. Let me do 105. So I did about 105 for 3 weeks, and I was doing consultancy. I had two e-commerce businesses, and I was head of e-commerce at another brand. I definitely learned my lesson about burning out and lost all my desire to run a business, had no work-life balance. And that was the biggest learning lesson I think I probably had, is that if you're working, there becomes no drive to work anymore.
What do you need to achieve in your life to look back and say, this has been successful? Piers, thanks for coming on the show today.
Pleasure. Excited to be on.
It's quite a funny one because when I reached out to you via your company Instagram, I didn't actually realise I knew you before because you were an introduction from one of our friends who was on the podcast recently, Rich. And then when I realised that it was you, it was just quite a sort of a funny moment. But I'm super happy that you've come on today and excited to get into the conversation.
Yeah.
Could you just start by telling us a little bit about your background and then what led you to starting the company that I know you for, which was Hyde Hare, but you also know there is a bit of a story as well. You've got another company in the background as well, which would be interesting to learn more about that one as well. Yeah,
so traditionally I've probably been in e-commerce like many people in this world. I started at 13, 14, selling shoes, selling bits and bobs on eBay at that age, so I didn't really have to get a Saturday and a Sunday job. I think that's everyone in e-commerce, is route to market. I then went away and did real estate at uni because half my school did. Just a natural thing to do, and then did it in London for about 3 to 4 months and realised quite quickly that wasn't for me. Couldn't write reports all day and didn't really see myself sitting in an office block for the next 40 years. So I went away, took a year off, went to Kenya, worked on a safari lodge for 6 months. Wow. And came back and decided to kind of pursue e-commerce, not knowing really what to do. So just kind of took a plunge into that and learned a lot early on. Started the business when I was 26.
Is that Hyde Hare?
Yeah, so I started Hyde Hare and another business on the side quite early on.
Nice. Were you working before that as well?
Yeah,
in a normal job, as people might say it.
Yeah, I was. So I did it for a year, and then decided I needed to learn as much as I could because there's only a certain amount I could teach myself. So I went and I joined another business, another fashion business and interiors business. And I was lucky in that they were scaling really, really quickly, and they got a huge amount of investment. So I quickly got to kind of head of e-commerce, and managed to work with some really great agencies, developers, and kind of learn the business through that. And when I had enough knowledge and I had an extra few quid in the bank account, I decided to take the plunge and just go full time with it. Wow. With both.
So you said you got yourself to the head of e-commerce for this company.
Yeah.
That's impressive.
It was a small company, but by the time I left, there was about 50, 60 employees. Okay. Yeah.
Was that like a proper startup culture when you were there?
Probably what you describe as a startup culture, yeah, but like still a £8-10 million a year brand.
Wow. You must have done a lot. In that year that you're working there. Yeah,
a lot. And I was kind of able to translate those learnings quite easily across because it's the same premise, e-commerce and B2C and events and website experience, and take those learnings across into my own business.
So what is Hyde Hare then?
Hyde Hare is a Scandinavian-based interiors brand focusing around kind of natural fibres in conjunction with nature, very much kind of wool-based products, Berber rugs, cow hides. Everything is a byproduct of the food industry, and we try and encompass like a Danish style of living called Hygge. So Hygge, if you don't know it, is a very cozy style of, if you imagine kind of cashmere socks in front of a log fire, and that feeling of like layers of textures and blankets on top of you, and it's just trying to bring that into your home. When I was growing up, my parents were property developers and we'd move house every year. But what would be consistent for us is that Danish style of living that we had in the home. So that almost became home for me. And I knew from early on, I think I was wanting to go into that interior space and create a brand that you could captivate that feeling into a brand. And there was a big gap in the market for us to do that. And that Scandinavian way of living with like that touch of Hygge, you feel really cozy, warm. And then luckily we've got those kind of natural fibers, those sustainable products that kind of align perfectly with the brand.
Yeah, I've looked on your company website, your Instagram page, and when you describe that very cozy Danish style of living, it is so cozy. And I think that a lot of people now, they go for this minimalistic, this sort of like the creams, the whites, almost like this the Scandinavian, the Swedish style. But what comes across in yours is almost like a Danish or a Norwegian like ski lodge, wood fire, the nice like
completely
the hides and that sort of stuff, which is, it looks incredible.
It's very in line with nature and in line with the seasons, and I think it just aligns with that minimalist, like neutral kind of look that is really popular at the moment. Everyone kind of looks to be a bit more sustainable and bring that into their homes, really.
So you said there about you saw a gap in the market or an opportunity. I was listening to a podcast this morning and they were talking about if an entrepreneur wants to start a business, usually it's born out of I believe I can add value in this particular area and it's something that I would pay for. Is that something that you personally experienced, that you were like, I want to pay money doing this, but I don't think the quality or the options are out there?
Difficult one, because I don't actually think I realised there was a gap into the market until about a year and a half in, and realised that I really knew that I was good at branding and I was able to convey a lifestyle like our competition wasn't, but I didn't really realise the extent of which there was a gap in the market, that there's no single brand that's doing that style of lifestyle that is so popular at the moment.
Who's your nearest competitor?
Probably the likes of someone like a White Company.
Okay.
But they're probably more known for their bed linens and candles, whereas we're going off very close to that Hygge-based lifestyle and natural fibres. So I didn't really realise the extent of what was missing in the market.
And is that going to come over time as you started the business and then it's evolved into
completely?
We want to then focus on doing this because that's where we think that we can add the most value, where there is a gap. So our vision is to create a brand that encompasses all of the natural fibres that have been used for thousands of years, that are sustainable in conjunction with nature. So you've got wools being used since 3000 BC, linen and flax being used since 2000 BC, all these fibres that have been used since the dawn of time. There isn't a brand at the moment that's kind of houses it all under one roof and all of those fibres under one roof, while translating it through like that cozy style of living and fitting that gap in the market. So for us, I might have, if White Company listening, I might have shot myself in the foot here. But, that's where we're going. Interesting. But you see, your products are a lot more niche and not as sort of widespread as the White Company.
Yeah, for certain. Like, we know what we do well and we're going to stick to that. We'll never start selling candles. We'll not start selling diffusers. We want to do natural fibres and build on.
And be the best.
And be the best at what we do, yeah.
Interesting. So I just want to, before we get into the rest of the business, the sort of the journey, I actually just want to touch on a couple of points that you've made here. What was that period like in Kenya?
Yeah, it was amazing. I was really lucky that I worked in a lodge in northern Kenya called Lewa.
Okay.
In Lewa, and a lodge called Sirikoi in Enosoi, and I was lucky that Prince William and Kate got married there.
No way.
And we had the ivory burning at the same time. So Kenya had confiscated 4 years worth of ivory, and they had a massive black tie dinner to celebrate the burning of all the ivory, and we had all the big celebs. So we had like Leonardo DiCaprio and Michelle Obama and Michael Bloomberg, and we were just waiting on them hand on foot, and we used to just go for game drives for about 3 weeks with them.
So you've met all these people?
Yeah, and Liz Hurley.
No way.
So she was kind of I was talking to her on a game drive, and in the lodges they have a shop which is really, really popular, and they have these kind of small cowhide bags, and the Americans would come over and they would just buy them left, right and centre and take them home as gifts. And funnily enough, I was talking to Liz Hurley about it and saying, oh, I'm not really sure what I'm doing. I don't want to do real estate. It's boring. She was like, oh, just sell some of these. I'm like, 10 years later, I'm doing it. So if I could reach out to anyone now, I'd be like, cheers, Liz, that would be...
Reach out to her. Just be like, you may not remember me, but you gave me some advice.
Yeah. So that was the start of Hyde Hare. We started as a fashion brand, and 2 years in, we kind of quickly realised that the interiors was the space we wanted to be in. So it all started from a little shop in northern Kenya.
That's insane. I met, I guess, a relatively successful podcaster, a UK podcaster, and he was sort of the inspiration for me starting this. But there is no way I can say something like Liz Hurley or like Prince William or whatever. Where's my inspiration?
It was more luck than anything. Just right place, right time. We didn't even know it till about a week before.
Seriously?
Yeah.
And so you're working on this park or whatever, on this game reserve, and then you just found out that they were coming in and all these...
Yeah, everyone was giddy for about a week that Leonardo DiCaprio was staying.
That's insane.
And just got really lucky. Right time, right place.
Did you have any conversations with these people?
Yeah, we do take them on game drives every day.
Really?
For about two weeks.
Did you learn anything from any of them, other than Liz Hurley, obviously?
No, I think when you're chatting with these kind of people, you just kind of keep it top line, keep it fun. They want to enjoy themselves. So
yeah, fair.
Yeah.
So and then the other thing which is not spoken about so far, but you said that you set this up as well around the same time as Hyde Hare, is the other business. What's that one?
So it's a brand called CDC Collections. So it's a premium third-party retailer of high-end designer goods. So we're lucky that at the same time as kind of forming Hyde Hare, I needed an extra bit of capital. So I found an Italian reseller on a third-party platform who was selling really high-end designer men's and women's shoes, brands like Gucci, Manolo Blahnik, Christian Louboutin, and we were able to just messaged him one day out of the blue saying, look, these are really nice shoes. And because I'd been selling these shoes since 13 or 14, but I'd previously been buying them secondhand on eBay, polishing them up, taking a better photo and listing them online, I saw this guy was also selling them, but he was selling them brand new. So I reached out to him on eBay, bought 2 or 3 pairs of shoes from him, and nothing ever arrived. It took about 3 months, but what he didn't tell me, instead of posting with FedEx, he posted it with Italy Post, which is about, if anyone knows, nothing ever arrived.
Snow trail.
It takes about 3 months. So after about 3 months, I thought I was going to dispute a PayPal case. But I just completely forgot about it. And anyway, these really nice 1973 Gucci loafers just appeared on our door one day. And I sold them that day, put them on that day, and I sold them.
Oh.
And I reached out to him. We didn't really have any money at all. So I sent him the last what we had in our PayPal account, which is about £600. And I bought 6 more pairs. And then so I started doing that business like 7 years ago. So the premise of CDC Collections is that we have a middleman in Italy who manages to get kind of factory level defects out of Italy before they're burnt.
So then what you're selling are not like...
So they're completely authentic. They've got tiny little marks on.
Sure, yeah. The seconds, whatever they call them.
Yeah, they're factory seconds, but they're so small that they're almost probably classed as new. So then that's the kind of business I started at the same time, which is very much passive. Like there's not a huge amount of work involved, but it's like, it was fun. Like it's the original hustle, buying something for nothing and selling it for...
Yeah, it's making a margin on it.
Yeah.
Have you always wanted to be an entrepreneur?
No, but I think I've always wanted to work for myself, if that's what entrepreneurship is.
Well, I guess so. I think there's a few different angles of it. One of them is you want to work for yourself, but the other thing is also coming up with the ideas and executing it. So not everyone can do that. I want to work for myself. I've not yet found a business, for example, that I can say, right, okay, I'm going to quit my job and I'm going to go and do this. But you have the application to go alongside the desire.
Yeah. I think so. So my mum's was an interior designer. My dad's a landscape designer. So I think something to do with design was probably like quite innate for me. But I think I've always been in that premise where like I would rather work for myself at 13 or 14 selling stuff on eBay than rather than going and getting a Saturday job. And I think that instilled in me. I always loved to have passive income, in the sense that I'd wake up on a Saturday, we might have sold one pair of shoes, and I was so over the moon with it. And I love that premise of like, you can buy something for £50, you can sell it for £100, and you can pocket that. You don't have to go work for money. So I've always loved the passiveness and I suppose how immediate e-commerce is, and just the online. I always knew I was going to go into something online.
What does e-commerce actually mean? Does it mean that you don't touch the products?
No, we touch a lot of products in the sense that my parents' house was absolutely full of boxes for like 4 years, and they were absolute saints. I can't say how good they were. I mean, spare rooms to halls to their bedroom to my bedroom. I even had shelving in my bedroom at one point.
Really? And are these boxes of shoes?
Boxes of cowhide rugs, of sheepskin rugs, of samples, of pre-production samples of...
so your parents' house turned into a warehouse, basically?
Pretty much, yeah. And then we had sheds at the bottom of the garden.
Wow.
We've got a pretty good, huge warehouse now. But yeah, no, we definitely touched it. But I think e-commerce is probably just a platform to sell goods.
Yeah. So let's just start with we'll go back to the inception of Hyde Hare, for example, where, how did you find the product in the first instance to then start selling it?
So I think a fundamental point for us was early on is we wanted to make in England. So it's quite, I'd say the biggest trouble I'd say for access to market is that the better quality the factory, and a lot of people who work in production will notice, the better quality the factory, the harder it is to find. You'd expect a really good quality factory that makes for a Prada or a Gucci or a Balenciaga to have a lovely, beautiful website, to have a good marketing presence, but it's exactly in reverse. So the better the factory, the almost impossible it is to find. So there's a small area in southern Spain called Ubrique, and it's a really undiscovered gem, but they make for 90% of the world's global brands.
Wow.
You'll never hear of Ubrique, but it is, if anyone's looking for really high-end, perfect, bespoke factories, then that's the place. But I think that's the hardest thing to start a physical product brand, is to having access to a good manufacturing partner.
Because I'm sure you can go to China and you can get something quite cheap and import it. Did you have a determination from the start that you wanted to be amazing quality?
Yeah, for sure. I think that was the gap in the market that we also saw, is like a really good quality product. Most of our competitors are in the kind of wall space, or probably like your Dunelms and your Ikeas, which are not necessarily bad manufacturing partners, but they don't focus around quality. So I think, yeah, the brand was always set out with the idea of being really high quality, really skilled, and really beautiful cutting edge products.
So you found this warehouse, this factory that's manufacturing the good products. What did you do then? Did you make an order? Did you see if there was a demand first of all for this, or did you just buy loads and then say, okay, right, now it's time to sell it? Yeah.
So I think, again, why I'd probably advise people, if they're setting up a business, is having a job at the same time, because from the first time we started submitting an order, you got pre-samples, you got pre-production samples, stuff's going to go wrong, you've got different lines. It probably took 13 to 15 months to actually launch a product.
Okay.
So in that time...
That long?
Yeah.
Wow.
In that time, I didn't have a job. So then I went for 9 months to go get a job in that medium period to kind of fill the gap, because it does take that long, especially when you're working like a fashion business or an interiors business. It's not a case of kind of launching a product and you expect it. Like, we launched with a beautiful, really bespoke website. We did spend probably 2-3 months around brand photography, e-com photography, SEO, setting it up, everything perfectly. So when we launched, we had a really good platform.
Okay.
Whereas I think to give ourselves the best chance when we launched, it was going to be a success.
Yeah, that's one thing that I said about when I started the podcast, that first impressions mattered so much.
Yeah.
it had to look very professional. It had
Yeah,
to
and I
look...
think you've done a great job at that. Yeah.
Yeah, I appreciate that, because like it took time. It didn't take as long as what yours
Yeah.
did. But I do believe that particularly if you're going to try to create a good product, it can't just be like a makeshift website that you've made yourself. It has that, when people come there, they have to almost feel like they're getting a premium experience.
Yeah.
Even if you're a new company, it almost has to look like this company has been around for a very long time.
Yeah.
So investing into getting it to look great initially. But then there's also, I guess, the dilemma you have there, where you start to weigh up and you say, am I detracting from the actual business? For a business to be successful, you need to be selling the product.
Yeah.
How long did it take from inception to then you making your first pound from selling a product?
Yeah, probably 16 months.
Wow.
From the idea, from our first time, we went and visited our factory.
And people don't understand that.
Yeah, and I think, people will forget that naively, like you can turn around, you can make a product and it's made in a week. Most manufacturers work on a 3-month lead time and a two month shipping time. So that's 5 months straight away.
And what sort of orders do you have to make as your first one? Can you just make a small order, or is this you have to almost order in bulk and then hope that it sells afterwards?
Yeah, I think smaller factories will be really beneficial for you doing that, and you can always kind of negotiate lower MOQs, so minimum order quantities, if you pay a slightly higher price, and if they believe in you, they'll help you.
Interesting. So then, okay, so you're in this process here. Your website's being designed. You know your product. You're happy with it. At what point did you finally take receipt of an order?
Probably the first day.
Oh, really?
So we actually sold stuff on the first day, purely because my mum kindly wrote about 500 postcards to all of her friends.
No, okay.
Being like, my son's launched this brand, it'd be great if you could support. I think we probably see like 10, 15 orders off the back of that. But I think we got as well as commercial sales that same day.
So did you have a bit of demand there, first of all? Like, what was it, pre-orders that were waiting?
No, we didn't do it. We just launched on day one.
Okay. And then people just supported.
And people supported, yeah.
Interesting. And then what's the growth been like since that first day? And how have you managed that in the background? Like, what does it look like when you've got these orders coming in? You said there that you had like boxes all over your parents' house and that sort of thing. Are you shipping it yourself?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Shipping itself. We best mates with the UPS, the DPD drivers. And I think we didn't grow very quickly for the first 2 years because you need to learn a lot about e-commerce. You need to learn how to generate sales, how to acquire customers cheaply, how to retain customers, your customer experience, learning around, I suppose, everything in terms of Google Ads, paid social, SEO, Pinterest. You could go on for days. But it really grew when we launched our interiors side of the business, and we were lucky. Well, we actually launched just after lockdown.
Okay.
But then that's when we started to really, really grow as a business. And now we're growing at kind of like 80, 90% a year.
What was the inflection point for you?
In the sense of...
Why did you then start to get more orders or start to make more money from the business at that point?
Yeah, so I think I saw it was always for us. We were always going to go into the interiors and sell that Hygge-based lifestyle, and the interiors products very much align with that rather than a fashion-based product.
Okay.
It's much easier to translate Hygge through interiors products and soft furnishings and soft textures and natural materials. So as soon as we did that into interiors, there's a much, much higher kind of search volume and demand for those kind of products. So that was kind of the differential between our growth rate that we were able to kind of really kick on through being the best in that market.
Interesting. And where are your customers based? Are they UK based? Are they over Europe and America and those sorts of places?
So we do 25% to the US now.
Wow.
And 75% to the UK, and quite a bit to kind of ski chalets in France and Switzerland and that kind of stuff. And we do a lot to B2B interior designers.
Yeah.
In the interior design space. So everywhere from Edinburgh to a lot to London at the moment, to the home counties, to Wales, to traditional sheep farmers in Yorkshire.
Wow, okay.
So we're a bit here and everywhere.
So, and how have you managed to then go overseas with it, is it all about marketing for you? Is it about the SEO spend, or is it just that your brand is becoming just more and more popular and organically it's started to just spread out?
Yeah, so we don't actually spend a penny on marketing in the US at all. So one of my fortes, I suppose, that got me into e-commerce is just learning about SEO. So we were able to kind of really kick on our SEO in the US, which meant that we were getting a lot of organic traffic from the demand for our specific products. So we've just grown through that way. And obviously in the US, the search volumes were a lot higher. My old man's a landscape designer in Gloucestershire, and he had a terrible website and not much online presence. So I kind of, over a couple of weekends, just learned everything I could to help him out on the SEO front. And now he ranks number one for like garden design Gloucestershire. So
seriously?
So I was able to take those kind of learnings, I suppose, and apply them to Hyde Hare. And luckily we don't spend anything in the US, but we have a bit of a presence.
So what is good SEO for the novice, the amateur out there who doesn't really understand what SEO is and how it's used?
Yeah, SEO is basically the search engine optimization. So it's getting you to the goal is to get to the top of Google. So you don't have to then pay for a huge amount on paid shopping and for people to find your brand. It's just elevating you to the top of Google to put you in front of the most amount of people. And it's probably a case of becoming the authority brand is the best way I suggest to do that. Really creating content that puts you in the position that you're the authority in that space. So whether that's care guides, whether that's featuring other brands or featuring persons of interest in your field, creating that level of content really helps kind of cement that. So we've worked with like interior designers. We've got kind of guides like the ultimate guide to Hygge and that kind of stuff, which really helps us build like a presence to Google and generates us traffic.
Yeah. So fundamentally, SEO is going to be where you go onto Google and you type in what you're looking for, and then Google is just going to produce the most relevant product back to the person who's searching for it.
Correct.
And is that then based on the amount of traffic that flows through those websites, or is it based on money that you put behind it in terms of advertising spend to get on there?
No, I think it's for Google. It's just a case of they want to put their best website forward to get the person who's searching the best results.
Yeah, I've actually never thought about it before. I've never actually been in this field and really understood what SEO is. But does it work in a way where the companies that have a better like click-through rate or like purchase rate would also then be?
Yeah, so no one knows Google's algorithm.
Okay.
No one, apart from if you work in their small SEO team, well, probably large SEO team. But it's almost a guessing game, and they give out signals of what they look for. But certainly the quality of content, everything from, as you say, the click-through rate, the conversion rate on your website, the quality of the page loading speed, the quality of the brand, how you're doing on Instagram, how consistent you are.
Interesting.
It all goes into it. It's a one big algorithm.
Okay. So your business is going well. So you've expanded overseas. You're growing quickly. Have there been any like significant challenges that you've faced in your business? Because I think everybody looks at being an entrepreneur and they say, oh, it's great. You've got a work-life balance. You can work for yourself. You've got your own money and all this sort of stuff. You can get passive income, as you said earlier on, but it can't all be.
There is no work-life balance. Absolutely none. There were months where I didn't leave the home. Probably 1 month where I just did not leave the home when I was just so busy. 19-hour days for countless weeks, especially around like the Christmas period for us. I was head of e-commerce. So I was working kind of 9 till 5:30, 6, and I used to come back and we didn't have a warehouse then. So from 6 till 9, we used to have to pack orders, me and my mum on the kitchen table. Then we'd probably finish around 9:30, have a quick bite to eat till 10, and then I'd start work. Wow. So then I'd do 4 hours till 2 in the morning, get up and do it again.
You worked until 2 o'clock in the morning doing this?
Yeah, and I did that for about 3 months. So the work-life balance is non-existent, I would say, for a lot of founders. That's an extreme case, but for example, we were bootstrapped. We didn't have any money. So I just did it with what we had in savings and just kept everything in the business and tried to do everything to kind of prove the model and build a sustainable, profitable business rather than taking a huge amount of money and putting it here, putting it there, which I think is so important, that you're so good with the pennies early on, which leads you to learn everything about everything. Because I'd say the biggest mistake I've seen is brands who have got $1 million, $2 million investment, start hiring this, start hiring that. The money's gone quite quick. So we've got to a really good size business with no investment, profitable, just because of those early on elements where you have to learn everything. But I think, yeah, certainly massive challenges in the sense that no work-life balance. When we got a bit bigger, we had storage units, so we used to go down at 2:00 in the morning with a head torch on and pick a cowhide. We had 1,000 cowhides online, and each had a specific barcode. So like cowhide 903, and I had to go on a head torch and pick out 903, and I didn't have a clue where 903 was. And then a customer, and I'm on my phone on Shopify, and there's another ping, and someone else has ordered 8:30, and you're halfway home, and you're like, oh god, I'm going to go back to the warehouse, get the head torch on, pick out that one, and then you get home, mum's waiting up to wrap them, and they go out the next day. So it's like it's endless challenges. If you like to learn to run a business, to have a full-time job, and then we were lucky, we got a bit bigger, and we started making kind of waves in that kind of like country, I suppose, market, and then the challenges just keep getting bigger. So we didn't, because we couldn't afford £2,000 to kind of like IP our brand and get trademark our logo and pieces like that. So when we were, I suppose, 3 years in, we got sued by a really well-known clothing brand where our logo was completely different to theirs, but there was nuances, and they sent us through a 60-page letter explaining anyone with this form of animal on their logo, they'd won in previous court cases. So that was a massive challenge. We just done a huge order of hardware, of packaging, of printed ribbon, of tissue papers, of postcards, of all our packaging, of all our branding. And we probably had about £20,000 worth of like stock, or probably £40,000 worth of stock at that point, that we then only had 3 months to sell because the brand kindly let us carry on for about 3 months. So when everything was going well, we got sued by like a really, really well-known brand, and then had to kind of transition to a new logo and really start everything again. So there's constant challenges, and you're constantly firefighting.
What was it like that day when you got that letter or whatever it was coming through saying,
yeah,
like, does it come through the post? And you're like,
yeah,
what's this?
It's signed, special delivery by 1 p.m. and it's signed for, and they take a photo to make sure you've got it. I think it. I called up the solicitor, and I think they expected us because, again, we had like a really beautiful website and we looked like we were big. But I called them up, and they were like, guys, we're working from a kitchen table. We're not going to try and challenge this. Like, it's a huge, huge law firm in Temple, where I, funnily enough, ended up living. And yeah, I was like, there's just no point. Like, you can send me letters all you want, but I don't really think you realise the business you're fighting with.
Yeah, so come and have a look.
Yeah, come and have a look on the kitchen table. So we ended up just like negotiating back and forward for a couple of months, and then I sent it to a friend's parents who's a lawyer, and they were like, yeah, just don't bother. There's no point. You'll end up having hundreds of thousands of legal fees, and you won't have a business to come back to. So that's yeah, certainly challenges. And then when we went to IP with our new logo, a brand, Hermes, came back to us and they said, no, sorry, your H is too similar to ours. So we were like, right, start again.
I mean, like,
so
this is great.
And that was the point I really wanted to give up. But luckily I didn't, and carried on.
So you actually wanted to give up the business?
Yeah, it just got to a point when like there were too many kickbacks. And I truly believe in like everything happens for a reason. And I thought that was it, right? That's fine. This is do something else. This is too much now. This is a hint. But just we one more throw at the dice, and we launched Interiors, and luckily that did really well. And who knows, what company could be listening to this, and
they might be suing them in the future.
Yeah, exactly.
God, that must be it must be stressful. Like I've had unexpected posts before, not obviously to that sort of degree, but then it scares you initially when you first get it, and you're like, oh god, like what am I going to do? But at that point, I guess you feel like your entire business is coming under the threat. Like you're probably going to have to. Did you have to pay them any money, or did you have to just get rid of the
just get rid
branding
of the
or whatever?
Yeah.
The stock, was it? Or
So it's the stock's got all the hardware, the fabric labels, the inside, the packaging. So we had to get rid of everything. You could touch every single product we own had our branding on. So we just had to sell it quite quick.
Oh, within a 3-month window.
Yeah, but luckily it was Christmas, so we were all right.
Oh, okay.
If it was summer, we'd be in a bit of trouble.
They're just using like bully tactics at that point. Because maybe they didn't realise that you were much smaller than you were as small as you were. But is it just you working in the business?
No, there's 6 of us now. A combination of really, really great freelancers. We've got an amazing warehouse. And just like a marketing agency and me kind of the only sole director.
But you outsource quite a lot.
Yeah, we outsource a lot.
That also helps though to keep your operating costs
completely
down, because if you had any sort of financial struggles, you could get rid of the freelance people as opposed to the paid employees, for example. So you're running like quite a lean business.
Yeah, correct.
And that goes back into what you said at the start, which is being disciplined and understanding if you build a business from scratch and you try to run it organically and not go out there looking for investment, straight away, you know how to grow a business organically and not get too carried away. But having said that, you are actually trying to raise capital at the moment. So what's the rationale for that? So
the premise is that we're really clear on the vision. We're really clear on where we want to get to. We've proven the model. We're in year 5 and now we're profitable and we're scaling really, really quick. So it's a perfect time for us to transition from going from that kind of small brand to being that mainstay for the Hygge-based lifestyle, for the sustainable products. And ultimately we want a huge amount of more product that we've planned. We've got furniture this year. We've got Berber rugs. We're supporting loads of cooperatives around Morocco for our production of Berber rugs. So we've got a really clear vision. I think for us as a brand, need just the capital to kind of help us grow in that line.
And take the business onto the next
level. It's purely to take it onto like a completely different level. And we're starting events next year, so B2C events and B2B events. We're working with so many interior designers now that that's a new path for us to grow. And to enable us to grow, we just need a bit of a bigger team now, and we need a larger amount of stock to hold. And we're looking for a strategic angel investor to come aboard and to really help us grow.
Are you looking to make your first full-time hire? For sure. So we're going to definitely transition away from our 6 freelancers, keeping them, but also bringing in probably 2 or 3 people in-house. Is that something that excites you or scares you?
A bit of both, because I think a lot of people in e-commerce think that they want to live the Bali lifestyle and have this passive income and go away. And I still in the background are thinking, before I'm kind of 35, 40, I ought to do that as well. But the reality is that you can't when you've got a full-time hire. So it's a massive, massive step in the right direction if we're bringing more people in-house. So more exciting than anything.
Okay. Because it is a big step, I imagine. Obviously, I don't speak from experience, but taking somebody on your books for the first time must be, exciting because the business is growing. But then you say, well, I've got somebody else's, I don't know, it could be mortgage or whatever else to be responsible for paying. So I can't imagine that any entrepreneur takes that decision lightly when they make that.
Yeah.
When they make the decision. Decision.
Yeah, completely. It is a big move, but it's the right point for expansion. We really need an extra pair of hands to really drive the business forward.
So what are your ambitions then for this business and personally as well? Not just, this is called the Ambitious Minds podcast.
Yeah.
So where do you want to get to?
Yeah. So we really, really want to go back to the point. Our vision is to create a brand that encompasses all of nature's products that are being used since the dawn of time under one roof. Your bamboos, your wools, your linens, your flax, all these natural products that have been used since the dawn of time. We really want to bring the light back on these products and see people invite nature back into the homes and ditch the plastic. So for us, we really want to create that authority brand, really premium quality that people have been using for thousands of years, and kind of go back to that way of living.
Is your intention to be the market leader in this?
For sure.
Yeah, the go-to. So that you've got big ambitions for this company.
Yeah, we want to probably get to 100 million in the next 15 years.
And do you want to be involved with a company completely for that entire time? You want to really see this through?
Yeah.
Do you see this company being the one that you do now for the rest of your life until, like, I don't know, you retire or whatever?
I probably see it where we get to the point where we sell it in the next 10, 15 years, but to the point where it's really, really all-encompassing, where we've really nailed the vision that I have, and then I can lead it on to another path as someone has a different vision for that, and to take it to the next level.
Would you want to be part of the business though at that point? So like you said,
sure, I'd like to be an advisor, and I'll probably keep equity in it, but my vision is really clear where we want to get to in the next 5 years. And supporting age-old craftsmanship, supporting those traditional natural fibers, and really cement the brand as a household name.
What do you need to achieve in your life to look back and say, this has been successful?
Probably internal happiness, I'd say, more than anything. And whatever drives happiness is the measure of success. So for me, that's still being able to play cricket on a Saturday. Okay. That's still being able to take my kids to play rugby on the weekends, or a lot around kind of flexibility of time for me.
Is that one of the reasons why? Do you think that looking back now, that's one of the reasons why you wanted to be a business owner or an entrepreneur? Because you wanted that flexibility at some point. And you've obviously spoken about there's no work-life balance, but you sound like you're getting to the point, and particularly if you hire staff, you're essentially outsourcing some of those jobs that you were doing at the start so that you can living that lifestyle. Yeah,
I think for me, I'd like to work on like a really, really top line level where I can add the most value. And then that frees up a lot of my time to have a work-life balance, but still working incredibly hard. Like I'll always really want to drive as much value as I can and work as hard as I can. But I think like founders often have like a really hard time of having a cut off at 7 p.m.
That's one of the hardest things as well. Having seen and interviewed a number of people now, knowing when to switch off is probably one of the hardest things, because people say, I want to quit my 9 to 5, but end up working 20 hours a day instead. And that's tough.
Yeah, it is tough.
Can you talk from personal experience about like how tough that is as well?
Yeah, back in 2019, I really, really suffered. I was working, as I say, like 19-hour days with probably, I don't know. I saw Elon Musk do a podcast many years ago and saw that he was doing 100 hours a week. And I thought, wow, that's minor leagues. Let me do 105. So I did about 105 for 3 weeks. And I was doing consultancy. I had two e-commerce businesses, and I was head of e-commerce at another brand. And I definitely learned my lesson about burning out and lost all my desire to run a business, had no work-life balance. And that was the biggest learning lesson I think I probably had, is that if you're working, there becomes no drive to work anymore. So I personally had like a really, really tough couple of months. I had like a complete episode of like panic attacks, which really made me focus internally and look at what I was doing with my life. I was so driven about being successful and doing all these things and learning as much as I could and doing as many pieces as possible in the puzzle, that I completely lost sight of probably like internal happiness and work-life balance. So having panic attacks and like a complete breakdown actually really helps you focus internally. It's just how you manage that. So I truly believe that elements like that happen in a reason for your life. And it makes you look inwards, and it makes you almost get your life back in order. But yeah, I learned the hard way by doing 100 hours a week.
Because you heard Elon Musk on a podcast. It's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah.
But then I think we all look for like these we look at these successful people and say, what are they doing? I must be doing something different to what these people are doing, so I need to be doing the same as them. But Elon Musk's a freak, man. Like, what changes did you make then to then get yourself back to the point where you had panic attacks and then feeling like that internal happiness to come back? You were back in love with the business, etc.
Yeah, great point. So I moved to London at that point. I knew it was the right time to move to London. I knew it was the right time for us to really grow the business in that sense and think a lot bigger. So we got a warehouse, we got a fulfillment center. So we offloaded all our fulfillment. We started to hire a lot more people and became less profitable, but our revenue scaled massively. But I think just overall, just having cut-offs, moving to London and doing more of the stuff that I loved in my life, playing sports, socializing, that kind of stuff. And naturally, that was actually one of the greatest revenue drivers because it meant I fell in love with my business and it works on a higher level.
That's fascinating, actually. So by giving yourself back some time and rewarding yourself, you're actually enabling yourself to then put more energy into the business.
Completely, yeah.
You said there about socializing. Now, this is something that's come up quite a lot so far. When you're an entrepreneur and you're working for yourself, you lose, like we go, I go to work on a Monday morning and I have a chat with my colleagues, and that you get that level of socializing from those people around you. What does a day look like for you? What do you do when you wake up if you're your own boss?
So, amazing part. When I moved to London, I worked in my flat for the first year, and I was thinking, well, what am I doing? Like, this is the premise of moving to London, so I could be around like-minded people. And the reality is, I'm just in a different space, but the result's the same. So we've moved into like a co-working space now, which is great. There's loads of great e-commerce brands in there, and it's way more fun. I know now that that's why I want to grow an internal team, because having an internal team gives you that co-worker chat, the after work drinks, that kind of premise, which as a result makes me work on a different level. When I'm inspired, I work on a completely different level, and I think much, much bigger. And I think anyone in business, like it's a quote by Tony Robbins, that business is 80% mindset, 20% skill, and you have to be thinking on a bigger level. So I think just having those elements of like in a co-working space, which I didn't have before, allowed me to work on a much higher level and throw ideas off people and work with other e-commerce brands and learn and go to more networking events and pushing yourself out there. So I don't necessarily think on a Monday morning, first thing I don't necessarily go to work traditionally until about 12. I look at this week's networking event. I plan my week in terms of what I want to do, where I want to work, what's going to inspire me.
Yeah, that's an interesting point, and it goes back to something that we were talking about off air earlier on when you arrived. That networking, and you said that you started to see the value of like-minded networking events.
Yeah.
So other e-commerce brands, whereas before you weren't investing as much time into those. You were just saying, I want to focus on my business. I want to put all my efforts into it to growing the business. But actually you realize that by networking with like-minded people, with other founders, other e-commerce brands, it's been beneficial to your brands?
Massively. So for example, we're going out to raise investments at the moment. So I think these networking events, it's all about who you know and getting in front of as many people as you can. So elements like these networking events from Quickfire Digital and a few others, and Ecom Collab Club, they just put you out in that environment where you can network and you can learn from other people and learn from other brands and learn from experiences. And it's been fundamentally amazing for our business.
So if there is a founder out there who's listening to this and they're not doing those, where can you find these specific networking events?
Yeah, so I actually found all the best ones through LinkedIn and just asking other people what events they're going to. So for example, in e-commerce, Ecom Collab Club is the main one in London. There's others throughout the country, but then there's also there's an amazing digital agency called Quickfire, which puts on amazing events. So I've got a founders dinner tonight in London, and it's just a case of looking at the Shopify space if you're in e-commerce, and looking at brands like Klaviyo, and they're always putting on these events. So it's super great for brands to be able to have these events to be laid on.
Okay. Final question before we start wrapping up, but I've asked this to a few people so far, but if you could go, what do you know today that you wish you'd have known when you first started out?
I wish I had a mentor.
Okay.
I wish that I knew the power of mentorship, and I still don't necessarily have a mentor, but I think a mentor enables you to think bigger and cut down that learning curve by a significant proportion of time. If I started a business again, there would be no way that we would raise money. We would raise money directly before we launched. So we would have a fulfillment center in place. So we had a marketing manager in place. So we had all these things, because it's ultimately about thinking big. And I think that's what a mentor helps you cut the curve. So that would be my one piece in getting a mentor.
So you said that you would do those things. So, because that earlier on you said that was one of the things that you feel has been beneficial to your business, or at least your mindset around how to run a business. Learning to be you're bootstrapped, learning to run this and build it organically. But you would say that with the benefit of a good mentor on board, thinking much bigger, you would actually invest more money initially into all of those things like the warehousing.
Yeah, I think it's a fine balance that I personally learned on almost how to be frugal and where to spend the money. And now if I was going to launch another business, I'd now know where to spend it and be frugal with that money. But probably, I would say if follow founder launching a business now, I would say go and raise investment, but then be incredibly frugal and learn everything you can. Don't use that money to grow. Use that money to keep you in a salary and to access, and use that money to go and learn, go to workshop events, go and use that money to find mentors. Don't invest it in yourself.
Would you like to be a mentor yourself?
I'd love to be a mentor. Yeah, I've mentored a couple of brands now. And it's such a rewarding experience. But ultimately, I'd like to find a mentor too. So,
have you had anyone so far that's been quite influential for you?
Not specifically. I've had a lot of help where we've needed specific input into the business, but not so much of a mentor to speak.
You mentioned podcasts. Do you listen to business podcasts?
I don't spend a huge amount of time listening to business podcasts. The only ones I really listen to is probably more sports-based podcasts.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. And I listened to your Pure Sport last week on the way to cricket.
I love that. Thank you.
Yeah, and I love the brand. So congrats, Ash.
Yeah, nice. So do you use it as a bit of an outlet? Because it's weird. Like I don't listen to music. I listen to podcasts.
Yeah.
And I don't know. For me, that just seems so normal. But like Julia, my girlfriend, I sent her something. I said, you should listen to this. And she was like, I'm not in the mood to listen to that. But for me, that's a way for me to switch off. How do you switch off? Do you listen to music? Do you listen to podcasts? Do you listen to a sports podcast, for example?
Yeah, no, for me, it's probably distracting myself from anything to do with business. I think after having that, like, not a huge amount of work-life balance, I now go work or play. So for me, switching off is going to the pub and not talking about anything to do with work. For me, socializing, playing sports is my reality of balance.
Yeah, I was so happy as well that you've managed to strike that balance, considering the position that you were in only a few years ago, and you've turned it around, and also like for not walking away from the business when you had those challenges, because you could be doing something completely different now, which is quite a weird thing to think about, actually.
Yeah.
Sorry, the last question then before we finish up. If you weren't running Hyde Hare, what would you think you'd be doing? If the business didn't continue, for example, at that point?
Yeah, good question. I'd definitely be in the e-commerce space, and I'd probably have an SEO agency, or I would be a consultant. I think it's a really, really rewarding job mentoring people. And I think for me, there's a huge space which is missing, is linking up entrepreneurs and mentors, because I don't think there's anything there that's doing that at the moment. So if I was looking to set up another business, I would be looking to bridge the gap between linking entrepreneurs up and founders with mentors, because I think there's a big gap in the market for in that space.
Do it.
No time.
Where can people find you? Find the brand.
Yeah, so Hyde and Hare can be found on Instagram. Hyde and Hare, spelled HYD. And then we're also online, and we have accounts at Pinterest and so forth.
Nice.
Predominantly on our website.
I'll do that thing when they say I'll link it in the show notes. So it'll be in the description if people want to check it out. But I would encourage everyone to go on and look at the website, look at the Instagram feed, because I think you spent a hell of a lot of money actually doing this. Like, it looks incredible.
Thank you. Yeah, that's kind.
You've done a fantastic job of making it look incredibly presentable. And yeah, that first impressions when I looked at the website, I was like, these are huge, these people. So yeah, you've done amazing.
That's kind. Thank you very much.
Cool. Well, thanks so much for coming on today.
Pleasure, Jay. Thanks so much.
Cheers, mate.